All hail the mighty. Yes, that's right, folks. Contrarian Codex sent in a bunch of Vampire Coast replays this week, so strap yourselves in. We're going to do one today. We'll alternate some other factions and mix in some more of his Vampire Coast replays, because, yeah, even though I'm a certified undead hater, I do still enjoy gunpowder units in general, and there's something about the soggy zombies of the Vampire Coast that are just very endearing. The hapless meatbags just doing their best out here. Anyway, today their opponent is the legendary Flying Tacos Ogres, which he did definitely bring a build here. He's got some flingers up front, the Noblar Slingers. Got some Noblars as a second line here, a Slaughtermaster of Heavens, which is a really interesting choice. He's going for pure damage here with Chain Lightning and Comet, looking to land some big hits. Bruiser to back him up with some Iron Guts, Sky Striders, Regiment of Renowned Crushers, such a strong unit. Scrap Launcher out on the far side, another kind of random pick, but actually don't hate it against the coast, because the Arc of Fire, you can do things like this. Taco is hitting it behind the hill here, so it couldn't get hit by cannons if there were any, but there are not. Alas, it will still try and fire downtown. Not going to do the most damage, but they're also not that expensive at the end of the day. Yetis here, and we also have some Blood Vultures fighting Scurvy Dogs in the woods, which it does appear these two units are just going to kill each other, so we could basically forget that they ever existed. Anyway, get things rolling here. The coast, they've got deckhands up front, a couple of bomber mobs, 3 Prometheans with shotguns, including the Lamprey's Revenge, and the Count Noctilus with some pistol mobs and handgun mobs. A nice mix, like a charcuterie of rank disgustingness and gunpowder. Absolutely beautiful on this wonderful Lustrian day here. The two armies drawing close to one another. We get that long-range summon with the deckhand getting ready to rush in. Flinger's going to be doing a bit of kiting. It is, of course, a conquest, so get the points ticking up immediately for the coast. But I have to say, just immediately the balance of power, losing that one Scurvy Dog is like, coast got no chance here, which is kind of insane, but, you know, sometimes the balance of power does things we don't expect, which is part of the fun. Yeah, right now, the zombie mobs, one important factor, despite they do, despite them moving very slow, they can fire on the move, so technically while they're advancing here, should the Noblars continue to pull back, they might be able to get a few shots in. Same thing with these gun crabs here. And fight while moving, so hapless Noblars decide to turn around and re-engage, which is not going to go well for them, but they would have just got shot anyway. And now the bombers are in range to maybe get one volley. Ooh, yeah, the Noblars got interrupted before they could actually complete the charge there, so it looks like they just get nuked. The other bomber getting peppered down by the Flingers, which I haven't really talked too much about. I mean, they're just like a low-tier sling unit. Their missile strength is incredibly bad. They're basically on par with like Skaven Slave Slingers, I think, but with less models, so they're actually less good. But yeah, they actually, you know, all teamed up here are able to somewhat deal with the bombers. At least get them to crumbling, which, you know, means they'll still get in and get some effective work done, but alas, be gone relatively soon. We see the Comets swinging up. Handgun mobs do take some damage, given they're so slow to move. Maybe like 20 of their unit models, but even with a good dodge, yeah, they're still going to get hammered by that. One pistol mob also goes all the way up to engage that Scrap Launcher. Just absolutely stuff going on all over the place here. We've got the gun crabs kind of cycle charging in the front line, doing some little hammer and anvils across the space. A Yeti emerges from the woods to try and fight mano-a-mano with the Prometheans, and it doesn't look like it's going too well for them. I would say here the Prometheans' armor gives them a pretty fair advantage. Their stats are actually very comparable in many ways. The Prometheans do have less weapon strength. Yetis technically have more models, but that armor difference does actually matter. Even though they're both armor-piercing units, it's still 25 non-armor-piercing damage that is mitigated significantly, right? Whereas the Yetis, I mean, imagine it's something similar, right? Yeah, like 40 AP damage is getting mitigated very heavily by that heavy armor, so not to mention the gun support, a little bit of halberds as well, and the Yetis are off the field. Scrap Launcher getting pushed back here. Scrap Launcher over on the other side. It's kind of chilling. We got the Noblar Flingers sitting back, flinging their rocks. Ooh, a little chain lightning here in the center as the Bruiser gets in to mix it up. It looks like the Sky Striders haven't really been deployed anywhere too crazy yet. Only 13 kills, about 47 value, so trying to get into a position where they can charge in without bearing the brunt of the guns. Certainly easier said than done. But we'll check in with the Slaughtermaster's value as well. 50 kills, about 300 value so far. Nothing too crazy, considering the expensive spells he's been casting, but things are about to turn for the Ogres as the biggest boys are getting involved. Watch them as they just run straight through one unit and immediately lock in on their most threatening opponent, at least in their minds. Certainly these guns need to be dealt with, and they are paper thin when you're a giant Rhinox rider, basically, right? Or are these things Rhinoxes, or are they just called Crushers? I don't know. Maybe that's something from AOS. Anyway, a lot of fun. Scrap Launcher lands. Those deckhands are having a real bad time. And Noctilus comes through to try and apply his halberd to the Sky Striders. Unsuccessfully, given that he is infantry, and we see another Comet drop here in the center. That actually is going to do a tiny bit of friendly damage to the Iron Guts, but does quite a bit of damage to both zombie units, which were probably dead anyway, but there you go. This helps speed their passing. And the bombardment from Noctilus does land a couple of hits. Meat Feast currently active, though. Getting some nice healing and Vigor Refresh. Off the army ability, that is one benefit of Ogre's army abilities, is you don't necessarily have to take their special Lore of Magic, which gives you access to Troll Guts, right? Which gives pretty consistent healing. In a situation like this, in a build like this, where really the only thing you need to heal is the Sky Striders, assuming you can get enough army ability value, get the heal, certainly something you can do. And instead take lots of damage spells, which so far has done some things. Definitely respect it. Legendary memer like Flying Taco, taking a kind of a meme Lore of Magic, to be honest. But yeah, it's not bad. It's still a Lore of Magic. Definitely one that you can take as the Ogres. But Sky Striders moving through. They're not really facing any significant obstacles at this point, so they're just kind of running around, blasting whatever targets they can, largely avoiding the crabs, because that is the main, obstacle in terms of mass blockage. Could potentially stop them in here, allow them to get shot up by the guns, hit by the halberds, whatever else. See that, yeah, there's some deckhands way out in the boonies. They've been chasing some flingers and other stuff around. They're going to take 100,000 years to get back to the battle. Same thing with these guys. Their zombies out of position is pain, because they're so slow. Anyway, scrap launchers both using up their ammo. I'm curious these things have even come close to paying for themselves. Yeah, like barely half. That is one thing. I mean, scrap launchers, I like the idea, and they can still come in and get some value in melee as well to try and pay for themselves, but generally, like, hordes of low-value infantry is not necessarily what they're best at shooting at. In particular, the best targets for scrap launchers are, like, high armor and high-cost infantry units, like, like Demonettes or Witch Elves, stuff like that. They can get some really good value if they can land some solid hits, but here, just the sheer mass of numbers means that they haven't actually done a lot here. I mean, 101 kills, 500 value, what do they cost? Like 900, 800, something like that? It's not bad, and certainly they can come in and still pay for themselves, but Bruiser having a real bad time as he gets hit by the Lamprey's Revenge, and in general right now, the shotguns being able to fire while pursuing has been very helpful because the coasts are kind of in a position where they're getting kited somewhat, right? You've got all these flingers trying to move and shoot and continue firing. Yeah, you've got the scrap launchers also doing something similar, so should be good. Blocks of scrap landing here on the deckhands. That frostbite putting them down into almost single digits speed. But, when your speed's that low to begin with, you don't lose that much by getting frostbitten. Sky Striders managed to move away. The Iron Guts suffering pretty badly there under the armor piercing of the Lamprey's Revenge and those very cost-effective zombie halberds. Well, cost-effective in the right engagement, certainly, against anything large. Let's see here. Not looking great for the Ogres, as yeah, the Heavens caster also hasn't been able to really hold a candle to Noctilus. Taco really doesn't have a good answer for Noctilus himself. And despite the Crushers being one of the best anti-large units in the game, they are quite significantly outnumbered by crabs. And again, we see how the guns make such difference for these Prometheans. They're able to, you know, even though they're quite slow, and especially being frostbitten by the Sky Striders, right? Like, they have no chance of catching, but even as they're pursuing, they can get some shots, they can continue dealing a little bit of damage, putting on the pressure, right? So even though their speed comes back to haunt them, they have the solution, which is gun. Very cool stuff. You can see the Slaughtermaster moving through. Whoop. Go after the peg leg, see where he's going. Hustling across the field here. Yes, yes. See, here's more of a situation that the Sky Striders are looking for. 1v1, clean charge into the Prometheans. Massive amounts of damage, absolutely chopping those crab legs. Getting ready to put them in a giant pot of boiling water, no doubt, and butter. But we do actually see a couple of their number fall as well. What do you think? If you get chopped by one of those giant ice swords, does that, like, instantly freeze the crab legs? Anyway, yeah, the crabs are done, at least that unit. Prometheans just gets evaporated, so it definitely shows how the Prometheans need to stick together. They need to work in tandem now with the two that are remaining, and especially working with Noctilus for his own anti-large AP. But Sky Strider's getting another meat feast, getting that sweet healing and vigor refresh. You can see them kind of not really wanting to just charge straight in the face here, where, I don't know, maybe you could catch Lampreys isolated, but instead they try and bypass, go up and around to catch the other Promethean. Noctilus is going to get a single attack animation in there before he's left behind. That did probably some damage. But the angle here is tricky because they've kind of set themselves up to potentially be sandwiched here. Now, they do have the Noblar Scrap Launcher, and right now the Lampreys Revenge are running in the opposite direction, chasing the Lord into the jungle there in the distance. So, once again, the Crushers are able to get a pretty favorable engagement, keep things interesting, but maybe not. Noctilus himself charges in, and suddenly army losses hits as the Slaughtermaster out in the distance there. Did he just miscast himself? I see a blue glow. Anyway, maybe he's just casting a spell. Hard to tell. Regardless, though, Ghost takes home the win on the backs of many rotting crabs and their shotgun-wielding riders. Absolutely beautiful. Really, really fun stuff. And Codex takes home the win there. Yeah, I'm curious to see how he does in the rest of the games he sent me. Taking Coast against other various factions, but definitely a fun one for sure on this. Very wide build, which you would expect to see in some matchups, but ultimately ends up working out well against Taco's equally wide build here. Yeah, in terms of units that pay for themselves, it's basically the Rotting Prometheans and nothing else. Like, one gun pays for itself. Yeah, the pistols are reasonably cheap. They're probably cost-effective at around 300. Yeah, Noctilus doesn't even pay for himself, although his support value is quite nice. But yeah, mainly just the Prometheans. Taco had one answer, but it ended up not being enough, and the Yetis getting caught and killed on their own, too, I think was pretty painful. Had the Yetis been able to work with the Sky Striders, like have these two units kind of run together and support each other, I think it would have given a lot more problems for the Rotting Prometheans. But even still, I mean, Taco was able to get one good engagement there, at least, on the one Promethean and just shut it down. But Sky Striders, despite their power, I mean, the Prometheans are really just no joke, right? I think they even have charge defense. Check that in just a minute here. Yeah, scrap launchers, yeah, they're kind of here. I think if maybe, yeah, maybe not the best matchup for them, but I do understand at the same time, getting some pressure potentially on, like, different weapons teams and having that arc of fire, like I said, to be able to hide and deal damage to, like, I don't know, like, deck gunners maybe, or the cannons. Not too expensive, but yeah, for Coast, such an important unit to have these rotting crabs here, the Rotting Prometheans. I mean, yeah, 120 armor, at 12 unit models, they are less than your typical monstrous infantry, which usually comes in around 16 unit models, but that massive armor, decent weapon strength, 59 melee defense, and they do indeed have charge defense. The regular ones with charged defense versus large, and the Regiment of Renown has expert charged defense, and of course comes with regeneration. But that does mean that they can kind of stand and like take charges, depending on how the angle of impact for something like the Sky Striders. It really depends. You kind of got to get side and rear charges into them, or otherwise disrupt the formation so that you can bypass that charge defense. It's one of the few monstrous infantry actually in the game that have it. There's maybe one or two others I can think of, like the Treekin for the Wood Elves, which you basically never see, but they do exist as well. Anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoy. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.